js-ipfs with your host, David Diaz, the wonderful, the awesome, the inimitable. David, go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Um, cool. So we don't have a note taker sign. Would someone like to volunteer to take notes for this call? Emily, thank you. You're awesome. All right. So if you haven't added the things that you want to talk about in this meeting, please do add them to the agenda. The first item was not added by me, but definitely important to go through. I'm not sure who added, but I can do the review. So the first item is review the current progress and why we are 2 weeks behind the schedule that we have planned for. So if you have a look at the milestones, the roadmap for js-ipfs, we are like working on the milestone 2, getting a lot of tests, getting things like work very, very well. It is true that like we planned initially to like have that done by the third week of August, third week / late August. Unfortunately, like several things. The last week of July was like spent having discussions about PubSub and other things related with the PFS, like migration to PLD and so on, which was not a work week for anyone. And more recently, we have been like having some hurdles with the migration to full streams, like hitting some like roadblocks, which has taken us more time. Also, like when we decided to go into a different route than Node.js streams, we also had like to spend some time discussing those and like evaluating the options, which like basically stole us more time than we actually hoped for. So it got us a little bit late with our initial plans to have all of these like tests and like the error handling done very well and getting IPFS, just IPFS more robust. Um, does it make sense? Like I don't know, like whether this happened of there was any other concerns in terms of like what we can do to improve it. Um, there's like definitely things that we've been talking about that like always steals a bunch of time from development because the people that are doing just IPFS are doing all the JS stuff on the IPFS team. Things that like each time we go into just IPFS API and we hit a problem with HTTP API and then like we spend like one day trying to figure out why there is something weird happening with HTTP API. Now we are losing a bunch of time. Like each time we need to upgrade our code base, like the multi-tool module that we have available, and we have to wait for CI to like run all of the tests. Like we spend a bunch of time waiting for all of the tests. And these are issues that have been like brought up several times during the last month and like during the previous month, but like last month again. And like if we can improve that process and there is capacity and availability to get the GBI better, to get the CI set up faster, way faster, it would be things that like would unlock the team to move, like, to progress at a much faster pace than what we are right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frido.
Okay, cool. Right, so I was the one who wrote it. Sorry,
That's
I
it.
forgot to add my name there. Thank you for addressing most of it. The main reason I wanted to I just wanted to call mainly attention to this, simply as just for us and when we do planning,
Yeah.
just to be aware of a lot of the things that happened were somewhat known when we did the planning, and we kind of we underestimated them. At least I did, some of them, and I think we just can learn from this in terms of how we estimate some things and just know that things often take longer.
Yeah. Which is like a common issue when developing software, and I think that's more like a project management issue than like specifically just IPFS or what they are doing with just IPFS. We do try to keep we do try to always have a list of items that each goal is composed of, and we always like try to see and like make sure that the ball is rolling in every direction so that like we don't lose track of anything. There is always like obstacles that we will face that we cannot predict. There is always like things that consume our time that were not in the plans.
Yeah.
I do think though, again, but this is more a project management thing. I do think though that like being optimistic and like being ambitious and like trying to push as much harder as we can in the shorter amount of time, even like if we have to derail a little bit, but like if we like understand why we derailed, is more important than just like having a lot of space to do less work and then like be more comfortable because we would have like more space than more time than we actually needed. I don't know. I didn't want to, or I don't think like it's proper protective to use this time to like go through those things. We definitely it's something that we touched in the last gathering. Be I don't know. Or I do know what I do like best, and I do know how I work best. And if it's something that everyone feels that like it should change, and that we should like have smaller milestones and like have always time to like the time that we expect to develop and the time that we add as a buffer always on the roadmap. If that seems like something that like everyone would like to have, then we can definitely discuss it and like figure out, especially when we update the roadmap the next time, we can like account for that and make sure that we always have buffer time just for these kind of issues. Does it make sense for everyone? Or Frido, you want to say something?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think to add some buffer time. I don't see that we will run into the problem of, oh, we have all this much time and we're like going and relaxing. I don't think that's going to be any issue. But I'd rather have a more realistic approach to the estimates if we're doing them than to make them as squeezable as possible, given that we all know things often take longer and things come up. Because it does create like being 2 days behind schedule is nothing we sweat unless there is a specific date we have to deliver to. Being 2 weeks behind is, for me at least personally, already like feeling like it gives me a bad feeling, right? And I'd rather avoid that as much as possible. Yeah.
These are all really great comments, and I think that some of this will be resolved, especially as Matt and I finish ironing out the PM process. But why don't we spend the rest of this call going over the rest of the Q2 goals? It looks like there's a lot left under the testing infrastructure, as well as some of the dependencies. Do you want to start going over that, David?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So, as I said, one of the things like on like the goal of the milestone, like the quality and the correctness of the JavaScript implementation, a lot of the problems that we had in the past was because of like the lack of good error handling in terms of like Node.js streams worked, and that's why we had like this huge discussion about migrating to full streams or reactive. But we decided to go with the full streams, and now, like finally today, we have like all the tests across all the modules passing using full streams, which is like good news. Now, like we need.
We don't.
What?
There's some. I'm sorry.
What? Which one?
Dang it. Real.
Did you find something? Oh my god.
They were rude. There's still one issue left with WebSockets.
Okay, but that's not an issue. That's something that we already talked and we know how to solve it.
No, there's a concrete issue where tests are failing with WebSockets at the moment.
Because of the half-closed streams?
No, because of something weird.
Okay. Can you point to those?
It's in the list. I added 2 issues where I listed as PD1. There's a second one in that list. But we are very close to finishing having all the P2P tests pass.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely add that to the notes. I need to check that again then.
Sure.
Seems like I missed.
Sorry.
Yeah, cool. And like to merge all of those post-stream PRs. We just need to add the documentation of what's going on there and like explain to people how we are using pull streams as
Got
we
it.
agreed in the past.
One.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that this is a really good learning moment because when the proposal to pull strings was coming up, I was like, this is going to take a million years and it's going to be very slow. Changing a technology throughout a code base is never easy. It's full of questions. It's full of things that you didn't know were going to happen. And so, yeah, it's like a really hard thing to do, even if the change seems small, even if like it should just be like swapping one library out. Always assume it's going to take a lot longer. Always assume it's going to like have a bunch of problems. So in general, I would, and this is I think a topic for a different discussion, but it would be great to, I don't know, like it seems to me, and like maybe this is just my observation from outside, but it seems to me like js-ipfs like jumps through a bunch of different technologies, like a lot, and spends a bunch of time dealing with the offshoot of adopting a bunch of different tech, and then ends up being like not actually useful work because it's like, there was one way of doing it, one like this thing, and like now everyone get in a car and like drives to this other place, right? And then you take a long time to get in there, and then you go somewhere else. So it's just like a cautionary warning.
Mm-hmm.
The next time that another shiny thing comes out and it's like, hey, isn't this amazing? And I was like, yeah, it's amazing. Let's all switch everything to it. It's like, hold up. So, yeah.
Yeah. Frito?
Yeah, one very important thing I wanted to mention here is, yes, we have that issue in the JavaScript world, I want to say, or at least there's a lot of part of the community likes shiny new things. I also like shiny new things. I'm not going to deny that. I do want to point out, though, that the pull stream change was done due to the simple fact that we were running against issues in node streams that we didn't effectively know how to fix. Without actually like rewriting the whole library, because basic things like error and end propagation are simply not there, and we were just seeing that, didn't see a way out fixing those.
Yeah, so there's like a very long issue, like describing all of that. Definitely warning taken, and we should be very cautious when we start talking about the new API for js-ipfs or whatever we're going to do internally, because totally agree. But as Frito said, like it was or doing that investment or reinventing the wheel ourselves in order to make it better. So definitely be cautious, but sometimes we also have to do it. Just making sure that we are making the right decision at the right time. So since like we already spent half of the meeting, going to jump in one item that I would like to bring attention from everyone to it, which is the cancelables. We talked 2 Mondays ago about getting an API and a way to do the context canceling thing like go-ipfs does, because it's kind of like really hard to do that in JavaScript because of like all the callback pattern, and since we have all of these interactions where like some client from a CLI, from an API client asks for some blocks, asks for some files, and then like speed swap starts like trying to fetch these blocks from the network, and then suddenly the client disappears. There is no more interest in all those blocks, and speed swap is like still like munching, still doing the work. It is not easy at all to like we can hack it, but the way to hack it is just like add a lot of like checks everywhere and like leave callbacks hanging till they get fired once, so that they can be discarded after being fired, etc. And we need to figure out a way to bring the idea of context into JavaScript so that we can cancel those interactions. I opened an issue on the interface IPFS core And well, I'm sure like everyone is pretty busy, but like no one has commented yet. I would really like people to pay attention to that one and bring input. Juan?
Yeah, I'll definitely write it there. I'm still thinking through the problem. I
Okay.
have some ideas of how you could implement context in JavaScript.
Yeah.
It's more idiomatic to how the callbacks work. There is a fundamental problem that you don't have switch in JavaScript. Like you can't wait for two things at once. And it's by definition callbacks, right? It's not core routine, it's callbacks.
Yeah.
So because of that, you're always going to end up with a problem that you will have something hanging with a callback, and it has to be fired. And then the first thing that callbacks does is check its context. And if its context says, hey, you're done, then it just returns. Even if it just got the data that like it needed or something, like, no, it's over, gone. And so that's, I think, the only way to like sanely implementing context in JavaScript as is without changing like the scheduling model. But I'll drop thoughts there. I don't want to like bike shit this year because it will eat up your player time.
Yeah, definitely it will be very hard to reach a conclusion here. Do note though, from like one thing that has this notion of context and like aborting a request is the HTTP module in Node. The thing is like the HTTP module is just like this black box that you would like make a request and like you call abort on that request. The way that the nature of like how IPFS works, like we would have to abort like a files.get, for example, and the files.get would have to abort the bitswap calls that he called to get the blocks, and then the bitswap would have to abort the block service or the things that he is like asking from the network. So it has to be something that like chains very well, and that's like one thing aborts the others, but not. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's what context does in Go.
Yeah.
I have some ideas what the interface will look like. I'll throw those down in the edition.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just one quick note on that. There's another discussion going on exactly this theme, which is on the standards bodies around cancelable promises and around promises, which is the current discussion around how to handle things like cancel actions, especially things like fetch that introduce promise APIs for HTTP requests in the browser need a standard way to be able to be canceled. There's already been a lot of work around this, and there have been a couple of presentations and suggestions. So we definitely should look at that just for input and references.
Yeah, definitely. If you can bring all of that to that issue, and even if we know the people that are involved on that draft spec, probably we can invite them to like chat on that thread as well and bring what they have learned. That would be pretty great. Cool. So definitely pay attention to that. We have 10 minutes left. Let's talk about like what you're going to do this week. This week is going to be about like merging the post-stream stuff. Definitely we'll check the WebSockets one. Need to see what's going on there. But all the other ones like TP, Speedy, Swarm, Identify, the peer-to-peer IPFS, the peer-to-peer IPFS browser, Bitswap, getting all of the missing documentation there, reviewing it again, making sure that we don't miss anything, and like start merging and start basically getting all of that effort and call it done. The other thing that we need to complete is I done a lot of work on getting interface IPFS core more complete, like adding the rest of the API specs, getting a lot of tests there that are run on js-ipfs API and js-ipfs. And I did one extra thing that I didn't plan in the beginning, but we added it to the roadmap. Actually, another thing, you might want to call me out on that because like I added items to the roadmap, like there's the extra section. Maybe I should not do that, but I thought it was important. So I accept feedback. So it is running the interface IPFS core tests over IPFS API, the client library, against the implementation of the HTTP API spec on js-ipfs. So basically, we are running the same tests through core and through the HTTP API. And this way we are fixing the HTTP API, making sure, because like, we don't have a batch of tests from the HTTP API spec to run against it. So we are running the same tests, but through our client library, which we know it works against GoIPFS. So it looks like we get like some level of confidence assurance that the HTTP API implements its stuff correctly, because js-ipfs API can talk with it. And with that, we actually found like a bunch of bugs. So it was very productive. I already did it for a bunch of the APIs. We are just missing files and Swarm. Swarm requires me to change a little bit of peer-to-peer to be able to dial to nodes that we don't know the ID beforehand. It's just like basically some little changes. We just assumed that we would always knew the IPFS ID beforehand, and that like would make it easier because we could then like check if we already had connections, etc. Now we just have to change that so that like it gets the ID from the identifier or SecIO first, and then like then understands that it knows the peer it's talking to. Yeah, so like I need to change that in order to be able to pass the same tests. And then it's the files. The files, there is a PR to get the add command working through HTTP API, which Voxelot was working on it a couple months ago. I believe he's pretty busy right now. I need like to check with him, but we might have to like continue and finish up and clean up that work. It needs a rebase and it needs to be completed. Once we have that add HTTP API endpoint implemented in js-ipfs, we can run the same tests and be done with it. That's a bunch of things. Everyone, same page. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, the big merge of pull streams, the remaining tests, so updating with peer-to-peer to be able to dial without IPFS IDs. And then there is the network testing, which is something that I started working before the Internet Archive, but it's on a PR right now. It is like spawning nodes, just IPFS nodes, and like destroying them, like creating tests that like really test just IPFS in ad hoc situations, so that we know that like if some node fails in the network, or like if something goes wrong, that the other nodes don't crash because, I don't know, a socket closed or something, especially now that we have the error propagation done right with pull streams. So this will be like the three things of like bigger focus for this week. Cool. Yeah, Friedel,
Yes.
anything that you'd like to add here to this list?
I don't think so.
Sweet. Okay.
Well,
so we have 5 minutes left. Anyone has any questions, thoughts, ideas? Go ahead, Juan.
Just what IPLD stuff you want to cover with me?
Yeah, yeah. So we definitely.
Is that our next meeting?
No, we don't have an IPLD meeting.
Oh, we have a libp2p. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I hope to have is like sometime with you and Jeremy, like an hour, maybe 2 hours, just to go through all the things I need to change in order to get the new CIDs, and then like figure out the list of like the action items that needs to be done in order to get IPLD on js-ipfs and working over Bitswap. I'm sure there will be some things that like we'll need to change specifically on Bitswap to work on GoIPFS, that it might be more clear for GoIPFS, and then we can just like port those ideas to js-ipfs. And so like as soon as we get together, it will be like, yeah, as soon as we get together, it'd be pretty cool if the first thing that we do is like 2 hours, just like brain trust, and I get that list out, so that also we can evaluate the amount of time and effort that we need to put in order to get it done, and see how much time that will take, and if we can like balance the priorities and get that done sooner than later. So Sounds good. All right. Okay, so yeah, Friedel, do you want like to give an update on the js-ipfs distribution size things?
I don't know.
If you do, it
Should
has to be within 3 minutes.
Yeah, I can do it in 3 minutes. I made an effort to port js-ipfs API to use fetch directly, which is the replacement in browsers for XHR in modern browsers, to reduce the file size of js-ipfs API. This was successful in so far that I have test passing in modern browsers, i.e. Chrome, and in Chrome. And most tests are passing in other browsers. The problem is that Chrome is the only browser that actually implements proper streaming for fetch requests. All the other browsers are just saying like, nah, like we can fetch stuff, but we don't do streaming, which is makes one particular request impossible for us, which is IPFS logs. Logtail is an HTTP request which just hangs. It stays open and it will just send data until you cancel it. You can't actually cancel requests in some other browsers on Fetch API, so we can't even like say, okay, we wait 2 minutes and then we cancel it and then we take the result. So what happens is you have to actually fall back on XHR for doing that. So I have to pull in XHR replacements for those other browsers for that case. But this test version does reduce, with the addition of the change in multi-hashing, does reduce the file size by 50%. So we are minified below half a meg now, whereas before we were close to a meg, which is pretty nice.
That's pretty cool. Like, definitely, especially because, again, it's just like removing a bunch of the crypto dependencies that were adding a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Can we have that in separate PRs? Can we have like the crypto dependencies skimming on one PR and the migration to fetch in another PR? Because it seems like skimming out the dependencies.
No, this is dependent. So because we moved to fetch, we can drop all the crypto shims from Node. Otherwise, we can't drop them in js-ipfs API because what we currently use is rec, and rec was written originally as a Node library, so it requires HTTP and HTTPS, and those pull in all the crypto dependencies because it's not modular, and so it just pulls in all the crypto stuff. Fetch uses for HTTPS requests the crypto stuff in the browser, so it doesn't need to ship anything crypto things for doing these requests.
But we also added a lot of like crypto stuff with web crypto and like the dependencies that.
Yes. So that's a different PR on multi-hashing.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's another different repo.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a dependency that we need to fix.
So technical point, it's 2 o'clock and our lib P2P call needs to happen. Can we move this conversation to GitHub?
Yeah, sure.
It is on GitHub. Yeah.
Awesome. If you can throw the link in the notes, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody.